This is the Open College on 4 with Make It Count.
Walking down the main street every day, the numbers and the signs flash all the way. Tell you how to make it, teach you how to make it count. Using lots of numbers in every way, helps you cope with wages and the bills we obey. Shows you how to make it, helps you how to make it count.
Hello, today we're going to start by going over some of the ideas we've covered so far in Make It Count. And we've had quite a few of them. Oh, it would help if you had a pencil and paper handy for later in the programme. We'll begin by looking at these numbers, the numbers from 1 to 9, and they are the basic numbers. After 9, of course, comes 10, a 1 and a nothing. And of course that reminds me I'd better put a nothing in here before the 1 and all those other numbers. The 0 here stands for nothing. So then back to the 10. The 10 is 1 10 and no 1s. And then after 10 comes 11, then 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Let's have a look at 17. It's written like this. 1 10 and 7 1s. 17. After 17 comes 18, 19 and 20. We write 20 like that. A 2 and a nothing, that's 2 10s and no 1s. 20. Then after 20 there's 21, 22, 23, 24 and then of course this number. 25. That's 2 10s and 5 1s. Then there's 26, 27, 28, 29, up to 30. And then up to 40, then on to 50, and then 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, and 66. Let's have a look at that. 66. Now, those two 6s look the same, don't they? But they're not. That is 6 10s, and that's 6 1s. So you see, where the number is tells us what it means. 6 10s and 6 1s, 66. And after that, there's 67, 68, 69, 70. Then from 70 to 80, from 80 to 90, and from 90 right up to 100. OK, let's look again at those numbers between 1 and 100. All roads have speed limits. On this motorway it's 70 miles an hour, and here it's 30 miles an hour. Urban roads are 40 miles an hour, and this drive is 20 miles an hour. This is the symbol for 10 miles an hour. 10, that's 1 times 10. 20 miles an hour, that's twice the speed of 10 miles an hour. 20 is 10 add 10, or 2 times 10. 30 miles an hour, that's 3 times 10. 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, that's twice as fast as 30 miles an hour. 60 is 2 times 30. 70 miles an hour, the top speed allowed on any public road. 70 is 10 add 10 add 10 add 10 add 10 add 10 add 10. 7 times 10. 80 miles an hour. 80 is 8 times 10. 90 miles an hour. 90 is 9 times 10. 100 miles an hour. 100 is 10 lots of 10. That's 10 add 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 10. 100. 10 times 10. Now, the only time you can travel at speeds over 70 are on trains. Note the 100 again. That's 10 lots of 10. 10 times 10. This 0 means no 1s, and this 0 means no 10s. The 1 means 100. Here's a tape. At one end, there's a 0, and at the other, 100. Now we'll divide it into equal parts like this. The numbers we've just had, 10, 20, 30, and so on, split up the 100 into 10 equal parts. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. We'll come back to that in a moment. This motorway sign tells us that the next town we'll come to is 7 miles away. The next one after that is 23 miles away, and the town after that is 48 miles away. And then the next town is 67 miles away, and the last town 82 miles away. Let's look at some of those distances. 7 miles is just 7 ones. 23 miles is 20, add 3. 48 miles is 40, add 8. 67 miles, 60, add 7. And 82 miles is 80, add 2. We'll bring back our measure now so that we can get some practice in getting a rough idea of the size of those numbers, to the closest 10. Well, 7 is about 10. 23 is about 20. Well, it's nearer 20 than 30, isn't it? Look at the mark. 48 is very close to 50. 67 is very close to 70. And 82 is very close to 80. There are times when it's okay to give a rough answer. If someone asks you how far it is to the next town and you say 10 miles, well, he's not going to be too upset about it if it turns out to be 9 miles or 11 miles, is he? At times like that, a rough answer is okay. But there are times when a rough answer is not okay. If we're to cut 7 centimetres off the bottom of these trousers, then we better be pretty exact. The point is that there are times when we have to be right. What about some really big numbers? Well, they don't just stop at 100. What does this number mean? There are 2 hundreds, 8 tens, and 5 ones, and they all go together to make 285. 285 pounds? Well, that's about 300 pounds, isn't it? Well, the colour TV will cost you nearer 300 than 200 pounds. Supposing you wanted to buy this car. Or this car. Well, looks all right, I suppose. How much is it? And what's the number? 8 hundreds, 2 tens, and 3 ones. 823 pounds? Oh, a real bargain, yes. Well, I think we might be able to haggle about that 23 pounds, but I don't know about the 800. We'll do some adding practice in a moment, using numbers between 1 and 20. Once you've mastered adding and taking away using those numbers, you'll find that you can use simple rules to do the harder problems. But it all takes practice. We showed you lots of examples in earlier programs and suggested that you use numbers around you to work with. Well, we'll do some more practice now with small numbers. Do you remember how we found out that multiplying was just repeated addition? 7 add 7, add 7, add 7. 4 times 7, well, that's 28. Or 4 add 4, add 4, add 4, add 4, add 4, add 4. 7 times in all is 7 times 4, and that's 28 as well. Let's look at dividing. Well, that goes with multiplying. These carrots are a knockdown price at 56p for £7. Well, is it a bargain? How much for £1? Here's the 7 times table. Now let's go down it. Ah, here it is, 56. 8 times 7 is 56. So the carrots cost 8p for £1. Ah, the good old days. This bag of carrots costs 59p for £7. Well, that's a bit more expensive. How do we divide 59 by 7? Let's check the 7 times table again until we come as near to 59 as possible, but not bigger than 59. Here are 8 times 7, that's 56, but 9 times 7 is 63, that's too much. So the answer is 8 with 3 left over. we can see here that to divide, we must learn our times tables. Now some multiplying. 26 times 3. First, the ones column. 3 times 6 is 18. Too big for the ones column, so we put the 8 in the ones column, and the 110 we carry over into the tens column, like this. Next, the tens column. 3 times 2 is 6 tens. Add the 110 that we carried over to get 7 tens in all, and put that here in the tens column. 78 is the answer. If you didn't get that, try this one. 17 times 4. 4 times 7 is 28, yes, our old friend again. 8 in the ones column, like that, and 2 tens carried over. 4 times 110 is 4 tens, and with the 2 tens added, we get 6 tens in all here. 68. 68 is 60, add 8, almost 70. Let's look at those two again. 26 times 3 is 78, and here 17 times 4 is 68. And we'll keep those sums handy as we're going to use them again in a moment. As we've seen, multiplying and dividing go together, so that 78 here divided by 3 is 26, and 68 divided by 4 is, that's right, 17. Now suppose that we didn't know those answers. How would we divide 78 by 3 to get 26? Well, here's the 3 times table, which isn't much use as we don't even get near 78. 10 times 3 is 30, and 78 is a heck of a lot bigger than 30. So we have to use another method. It's called long division. Let's see how it's done. 78 divided by 3. Well, we write it like this. Now, here there's a change. For adding, taking away and multiplying, we always started with the ones. But for long division, we begin with the tens. And that's why we write the 3 here next to the tens column. It reminds us what we do first, okay? So, 7 divided by 3 equals 2, because 2 times 3 is 6. Of course, there's 1 left over. Now remember, that's really 7 tens divided by 3 is 2 tens, with 1 10 left over. So I write the 2 tens in here, in the tens column, and the 1 10 left over I carry here to the ones column. Right, that's 10 and 8 that were already there, making 18 ones in all. Now 18 divided by 3 is 6, because 6 times 3 equals 18. So I can put the 6 ones in here in the ones column. There we are. Make it clear. And that's our answer. That gives us 26, which we already know. Let's do the same sum using coins. It'll help us understand exactly what's going on. Here's 78p. There's 70p here in 10-penny pieces. That's in the tens column. And here there's 8p in 1-penny pieces in the ones column. Now we'll put the sum up to remind ourselves exactly what we're doing. We'll begin by dividing the 7 10-penny pieces into 3 equal parts. And we get 3 lots of 20p and 1 10-penny piece left over. Now we can't split that up as it stands, so we carry it over into the ones column and change it, of course, into 10 1-penny pieces. So now we've got 18 pennies altogether, which we can divide into 3 equal parts. 18 divided by 3 is 6. There's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6. And the third lot of 6 there. So, you see, 78 pence divided by 3 is 26 pence, which is what we have here. Do you get the idea? Well, I'll do a quick one now on the board. 68 divided by 4. 68 divided by 4. Start with the tens column. 6 divided by 4 is just 1. That's 1 10, but there's 2 left over, 2 tens left over. I put the 1 10 in there, and the 2 tens left over I'll carry over into the ones column, giving 2 tens and 8 ones, 28. Now 28 divided by 4. Well, if you remember the 4 times table, it's our old friend 7 fours are 28. So there it is. That's our answer, 17. And that one works out exactly. But long division doesn't always work out exactly. Sometimes there'll be something left over. If you've got that pencil and paper handy, try 79 divided by 3. Now don't do it now, do it after the programme. You'll find that there's 1 left over. How many will be left over if you divide 83 by 3? Will it be none, 1 or 2? You try it after the programme. 83 divided by 3. OK then, we'll take a rest now from all this revision and go on to something completely new. Fractions. Yes, that's right, fractions. But don't panic, we're only going to do the simple ones because that's all that most of us really need these days. Look at some of these old-type mileage signs. What does this one mean? Well, it means 3.5 miles to West Town, and on this one, 1.5 miles to East Town. Both these signs have a half on them. And what does a half mean? Well, a half means a mile split into 2 equal parts of half a mile each. Here we are, 2 halves. 2 halves make 1 mile. What else do we use halves for? 2 half pounds of butter make a pound. And here's a well-known one, not that I bother with half pints myself, half a pint of beer. And 2 of these make exactly 1 pint, don't they? It just doesn't seem to taste the same. We can also split 1 pint into 2 equal parts, like this, giving us 2 half pints. So what does all this mean? Well, quite simply, a half and a half equals 1. 2 halves equal 1 whole. In the same way, 4 quarters equals 1 whole. A mile split into 4 equal parts is 4 lots of a quarter mile each. We use quarters for sweets and meat bought at the butcher's, a quarter pound of ham or tongue, for instance. If we split 2 half pounds of butter down the middle, we'd get 4 quarters of a pound of butter. So in 1 pound of butter, there are 4 equal quarter pounds. This sign has cherry tree in 3/4 of a mile on it. Well, what does that mean? Well, would you believe it means exactly what it says, 3/4 of a mile. A quarter, add a quarter, add a quarter. That's 3/4. And this is what 3/4 of a mile looks like. An amount less than a mile, more than half a mile though. We use quarters and halves at work. Time and a quarter, time and a half when we work overtime. If we split a pound block of butter into 3 equal parts, we get 3/3 of a pound. We write the third like this, 1 upon 3, 1/3. And 2/3 we write 2 upon 3, 2/3. Now, if we divided the butter into 5 equal parts, we'd get 5/5 of 1 pound. We write a fifth this way, 1 upon 5, 1/5. Well, not much difficulty in that, is there? There's only one snag. Not everyone writes fractions that way. They can be written like this. A half like this, a third like this, a quarter like this, a fifth like this, and so on. And the shops have their own way of writing them. As long as they are clear, it's okay. On this new motorway sign, they even go one stage further and drop the line altogether like this. This means a half, this is a quarter, and this is 2/3. We don't usually write fractions this way, but I thought I'd show them to you in case you wonder what they were. Now, there are only two other important fractions we have to know about. If we divide 1 mile into 10 equal parts, we get 10/10ths of a mile. So that each of these distances is 1/10 of a mile. And this is how we write it. 1 upon 10. 1/10. The last fraction we need to know about is 100th. And this is how it looks. 1 upon 100. 100 of these make 1. What's 100th of a pound? It's a penny. Why? Because there are 100 pennies in 1 pound. So if we divide a pound into 100 equal parts, it's a penny. What's 1/10 of a pound? 10p. And 1/2 of a pound? 50p. We'll finish, as usual, with some estimating. We've been working with numbers up to 100 today, and here's a household item that has numbers up to 100 and more. It's a tape measure. And this one is 1.5 meters long. And each of these units here are 1 centimeter in length. Altogether, there are 150 centimeters. That's 1.5 meters. Now, the tape starts here, and each number is 1 more than the last one, all the way through, right up to 150. Well, we often have to estimate lengths, you know, how much material we'll need if we're making some clothing, or roughly how much wallpaper we'll need when we're decorating, or quite simply, how much cucumber we're going to need for sandwiches. Well, you know the kind of thing you cut off so much to eat now and keep the piece that's left for another time. Well, we'll try and estimate some short lengths now. Now, the tape measure doesn't show up too well on camera, so I can tell you that this matchbox is almost exactly 5 centimeters long. Okay, 5 centimeters for a matchbox. So, what's that length? All those matchboxes. The total length of those matchboxes in centimeters. Well, let's work it out. They're 5 each, so that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 centimeters there. Right, that's 30. What's the distance between there and there? The distance between the matchboxes. Well, it's 4 matchbox lengths, which is 20 centimeters. 4 5s are 20. So that's 20 centimeters. What do you think that length is? What do you reckon? Let's work it out. It's more than 5. It's more than 10. But it's less than 15. Well, let's say it's 12 or 13 centimeters. Okay? Well, that's a very useful game you can play. It helps to practice adding up numbers, taking away numbers, and it also helps with dividing numbers and multiplying numbers. So, if you've got a tape measure handy around the house, get it out and you can practice your numbers with this. One final guess now. What do you think I am around the chest in centimeters? Well, the answer is just about 96. But if you've got anywhere between 90 and 100, that's very good. That's it for this week. See you next week. Goodbye.
There's an Open College course linked to this series, and if you'd like to find out more, then just write to Make It Count, The Open College, Free Post, P.O. Box 35, Abingdon, OX14 3BR. And that's all from the Open College for today. Coming up next, a report on yesterday's proceedings in their lordship's house.